let's dive into the incredible world of swimming. For us land dwellers, it's a skill that can feel a bit like weightless flight, but it's also a powerful art form. And, maybe most importantly, a critical survival tool. Mastering the water is, for us, a pretty unique and fascinating challenge.
So that's really the big question here. How do we, as creatures built for solid ground, learn to get around and even thrive in an environment where all the normal rules of movement just don't apply? Let's get into it.
We're going to tackle this in 5 parts. First, we'll start with the basic science of why we don't just sink to the bottom. Then we'll get into learning the actual strokes, see how swimming can become an art form, explore a little bit of myth and legend, and finally, look at its most critical role of all, saving lives.
Okay, first things first. Before we can even think about swimming, we need to understand why we don't just sink like a stone. And it all comes down to one simple but really powerful force of physics. You know, it's easy to think that heavy things sink and light things float. But think about this for a second. A gigantic, massive ocean liner floats without a problem, but a tiny little coin drops straight to the bottom. So clearly, there's something else going on here besides just size or weight.
That secret is a force called buoyancy. You can almost think of it as water's invisible helping hand, always pushing things up toward the surface. For anything to float, that upward push from buoyancy has to be stronger than the downward pull of gravity. It's like this constant battle happening right there in the water.
So, what about us? Why do we float? Well, for one, our bodies are already mostly made of water, but the real game changer is the air trapped in our lungs. That air basically acts like a built-in life jacket, making our overall density just a little bit less than the water around us. That's the reason you feel so much lighter in a pool. Buoyancy is literally doing some of the lifting for you.
Okay, so we're floating. That's step one. But just floating isn't really swimming, is it? So now, let's look at how we turn that ability to stay on the surface into actual, purposeful movement.
For a lot of people, the whole journey starts with the breaststroke. And here's a really clever way to remember the sequence using a few German words. First, you stretch out long and straight, like a fish. That's German for fish. Then, you pull your arms and legs in, like a frosch or frog. And finally, you push everything out with power, like a Hampermann, which is a jumping jack. Fish, frog, jumping jack. It's a super simple and effective way to learn. But the breaststroke isn't your only option, of course. You've also got the crawl, or freestyle, and that one is all about speed. Fun fact, the name actually comes from the constant creeping motion of the arms and legs. The trade-off for all that speed? Breathing is a lot more technical. Breaststroke, on the other hand, is slower, but that glide phase it has makes breathing way, way easier. All right, we've covered the basics of how to move. But now, let's explore how that movement can be turned into something else entirely. See, swimming isn't always just about getting from point A to point B. It can also be an incredibly demanding and, honestly, beautiful art form. And to get a sense of just how dedicated these athletes are, get this. Synchronized swimmers train for 8 to 10 hours every single week. And a huge chunk of that time isn't even in the water. It's spent on dry land, practicing things like gymnastics and ballet to build the kind of core strength and flexibility they absolutely need for their performance. Someone once described it as like ballet in the water, and that just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's this incredible mix of raw athletic power and super precise artistic grace. Every single movement has to be perfectly controlled, timed to music, and performed in perfect unison with teammates, all while holding their breath for what feels like forever. It's amazing. You know, our relationship with swimming goes way, way, way back. We found evidence in Stone Age cave paintings that suggests it was a fundamental skill for things like hunting and just surviving. That importance carried on through history, but its popularity has kind of gone up and down. During the Middle Ages, for example, a lot of people were afraid of the water and disease, so swimming really declined, before it had this major comeback as a sport and a hobby in the last couple of centuries. And to really understand just how important swimming has been, just look at the ancient Greeks. To them, being able to swim was just as fundamental as being able to read and write. If you couldn't swim, in their eyes, you were basically uneducated. It was a core part of what it meant to be a well-rounded person. All right, we've covered the practical. Now let's get a little fantastical. Let's look at how people are mixing modern tech with ancient legends to experience the water in a completely different way. The key to all of this is something called the monofin. Unlike the fins you might be used to, this one binds both of your feet to a single, powerful blade. And that totally changes how you move. It forces your whole body into this fluid, dolphin-like wave motion. It's not just for show either. It's an incredibly powerful and efficient way to move through the water.
And this whole idea isn't just some modern fad. The concept of merpeople, half human, half fish, exists in mythologies from cultures all across the globe. It really speaks to this deep-seated universal human dream of being able to move through the water with the same grace and freedom as the creatures that actually live there.
Okay, so we've looked at swimming as science, as a sport, and even as a fantasy. But now we're going to turn to its most important application of all, the ability to save a human life. This is where skill and raw courage meet some of the most challenging conditions imaginable. Just try to imagine training in water that is only 9 degrees Celsius. That is dangerously cold. But it's the reality for rescue swimmers because, well, emergencies don't wait for a warm, sunny day. In water that cold, hypothermia is a life-threatening risk, not just for the person in trouble, but for the rescuer trying to save them too. And the rescue procedure has to be followed perfectly. You approach with a rescue buoy to keep a safe distance because a panicked person can easily pull their rescuer under. You have to announce yourself clearly to try and calm them down, instruct them to grab the buoy, not you, and then you use a powerful backstroke to pull them back to safety. And this really highlights a critical truth about water safety. You could be the strongest swimmer in the world, but pure strength just isn't enough. Without the right technique, you'll burn through your energy in no time. Rescue swimming is all about efficiency. It's about saving your own energy so you have enough strength left over to save someone else. So, we've gone on quite a journey, right? From the simple physics of staying afloat to the incredible heights of athletic art, and finally to the profound responsibility of saving a life. Swimming really transforms water from something that can be a danger into a playground, a canvas, or a place of duty. And it leaves us with one last question. For you, what does it truly mean to master the water?